Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. I'm Keith Reinhart, the marketing manager here at FreshAddress. And today we're going to present a session entitled From Acquisition to Attribution, How the Biggest Email Trends Were Shaped by 2020. Just a quick look at today's speakers. Again, I'm Keith, the marketing manager here at FreshAddress. I'm joined by Brian McKenna, VP of Strategic Partnerships at DMi Partners, and Zach Labenberg, VP of Client Strategy at DMi Partners. And we'll take a quick look at us, FreshAddress, who we are. We're an email marketing intelligence company, and we're a leading provider of data-driven email solutions for digital marketers. We serve over 2,500 clients, including 25% of the Fortune 100, and we've processed over 15 billion email addresses and counting to date, and that's dating back to 1999. What we do, we clean, protect, and grow email address databases to help our clients maximize deliverability, opens, click-throughs, revenues, and ROI. And we do that with best-in-class technology, proprietary IP, and an extensive database. Those all kind of combine together to help us deliver unparalleled intelligence and results to our clients. Now a little bit about DMi.
Absolutely. So DMi is a full-service digital marketing agency based out of Philadelphia. We excel in managing award-winning campaigns for consumer brands, B2B companies, e-commerce brands. We've been around since 2003. What we do is we provide innovative email and affiliate management to accompany an arsenal of other digital solutions, including SEO, paid search, e-com, branding, interactive, social media, and advanced marketing analytics, designed to engage our clients' target audiences and drive new revenue. How we do it, we're staffed with, it's our people. We're staffed with big agency talent, and we offer, the personal attention and agility of more of a boutique agency. We have a track record of delivering the highest quality marketing strategy, execution, and results for our clients. And it's really all about the people we have here and how dedicated they are to the success of our clients' marketing channels.
Thanks.
So, today as Keith mentioned, what we're going to be covering are the biggest trends that, collectively DMi and FreshAddress has observed in 2020 that have been shaped by what a tumultuous year it's been. There's kind of four key areas we're going to cover. First is acquisition, re-engagement, and email. They're more important than ever. The COVID situation upended the world and kind of reminded people that had maybe been a bit complacent. So we're going to talk through how those three areas of email are particularly relevant again in 2020. Then we're going to dive into segmentation and personalization. 2020 has really helped a lot of our clients realize that that's kind of a perpetual battle that they need to constantly be working on. So we want to cover some of the things that we've been at the forefront of all of our client email campaigns this year. We're going to talk through engagement at scale, how you can actually grow your database with quality subscribers and why that trend has kind of reemerged as a priority for our brands in 2020. And last but not least, attribution and ROI modeling. How do you make sure that everyone in your company and around you knows that the email program you're managing is driving value? Moving on. So starting off with acquisition, engagement, and retention. We're going to talk through a couple things here. So we have conversations every week with all of our clients, as does FreshAddress, and we're talking regularly, and in our weekly calls and QBRs and 2021 planning, there's a couple things that just keep coming back into our face that our brands have learned in 2020 that they're particularly aware of, improving upon for the future. And the first is, how much of your active customer reach is represented by the engaged email subscribers you have on your file? How proportional is that database to what you see as your customer reach? We have a lot of clients who March came around, their business was totally upended. They had to rethink the way they did business, and tell as many of their customers about it as possible. Maybe they stopped doing in-store, maybe they changed their delivery service, maybe they were pushing more products through e-com, and they had to very quickly tell as many of their customers as possible. And for some of our clients, that's they think of their audience as 10 million people or 100 million people. But very few of them have an active, engaged email list that matches that. In many cases, it's a very small fraction of this. So when March hit, it kind of hit a lot of our clients in the face, man, email would be the perfect way to be getting these updates out. And we saw from our engagement metrics, consumers agreed. They were checking and opening more often for these types of updates. But you have to have the people on your file and have them nurtured and be sending them the right message at the right time. So that's the first big question we're having and with all of our clients this year is, how much is that subscriber list really comprised of the customers that you want to be talking to? And if you're not there, to our second point, do you have a strategy to make up the difference? That's so identifying the problem is only the first step. Coming up with a solution to the problem is oftentimes just as challenging, and that's why acquisition has become like the buzzword, the number one objective for virtually all of our clients' email programs in 2020. And the third question is, now you have a solution. How do you scale quickly and effectively? You can't just go out and buy a list or double your database tomorrow. How do you do it well? How do you actually grow that database in a meaningful way? So, these are the three questions our clients are constantly asking that we're working towards solutions for. And 2020 has been kind of a year that slapped them in the face to realize it. So hand it over to Keith here for a little bit to talk through the importance of validation in any sort of acquisition process, or the reason that validation kind of pushes for acquisition.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, and I think it's one of the key obstacles here is definitely email list churn. And the big thing to take away here is that the problem was already bad and it's gotten worse through the pandemic. So typically we find that 30% of the average list is lost to attrition each year. And I think the pandemic has thrown some fuel on the fire. We've noticed that bouncing and invalid email addresses that we process are definitely on the rise. The first 2 quarters of the year, we saw a massive surge in invalid email addresses in the client lists that we processed. Obviously, a lot of folks had unfortunately lost jobs, changed jobs. I think that contributed to it a lot. Even in the third quarter, we're still seeing about a 20% rise in email addresses that fail our deliverability check. So it's definitely a big problem. And then so that's the initial problem. And then why it's really an issue for marketers has to do with the dynamics that are brought on by the pandemic, right? So in 2020, most retailers, at least for a period of the first 3 quarters, they lost that personal store connection with consumers. And email was kind of the best way to maintain that relationship, to stay top of mind, and pushing people to their website was really the main driver and mechanism they had to keep their business afloat. Another trend that we've seen is that consumers, to some extent, have become more fickle, or at least more willing to try new brands, whether something's out of stock or there's not the buy-in of getting into a car and driving to a store. So this typical list churn then ramped up, then with some of these other trends on top of it, just make it even more painful to see that third of your list being lost each year and being unable to communicate with your customers via email. And now I'll pass it for some tips on growing in a safe and effective way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that validation piece just proves you're kind of like, as email marketers trying to grow the database, you're up against 2 challenges. One, who do I not have yet? And who do I have that I have a bad email address for? So there's you're getting attacked from all angles as to why your file isn't as big as it needs to be truly effective. So, we've got some tips for growing in a safe and effective way as you look into acquisition. First and foremost, this sounds super obvious, but we like to start all of our conversations with clients, is just make sure you're maximizing all of your organic opt-in opportunities. Never miss an opportunity to collect an email address on site, exit pops, in store, abandoned cart. There's like a million different places where you have an interested, engaged consumer who probably would be willing to give you your email address, but you might not be asking yet. So really do some soul searching there and think about where are consumers engaging with me prior to having given me an email address, and can I throw it in there? I mean, it's not nearly as intrusive as it used to be. We tend to tell our clients to kind of err on the side of over introducing opt-in opportunities, especially when there's perceived value to the consumer. If you got 15% off for signing up for a newsletter or something, consumers really can't see that stuff too much, and it's easy enough for them to click away. And absolutely, even for organic opt-ins, you got to make sure you have a validation solution in place. To Keith's point, it's a slip of the finger. It's entering an old email address. It's entering an email address that the next day is invalid because you had to switch jobs. Have validation in place at the point of opt-in, and have validation checks in place to be cleansing the database on a regular basis as well. But I think a lot of you guys probably are thinking, that's great, we're doing as much as we can in organic, we'll keep doubling back on it, but like we need to do something here to throttle acquisition to hit our goals, and that requires testing some sort of paid solutions for email acquisition. I should say, you don't have to totally, the time for paid is now. It's not when you've like stopped getting organic subscribers, because by their very nature, they're always going to be trickling in. They're organically engaging with your brand. It's more when you feel like you've plateaued and you know for sure that organic subscriber acquisition is not going to get you to your database growth goal. As soon as that happens, you should start exploring paid solutions. And for virtually every brand that DMi and FreshAddress talks to, that's true. It's true now. There are very few that are just like rolling in organic email opt-ins and like need to push people away. So maximize organic, but quickly try to test paid solutions, because it's hard to find one that works. It takes a lot of work. Great way to acquire new customers, obviously. Great way to connect with current offline customers through email append processes, which FreshAddress does a great job of. And also connect with customers who you lost an active email to the point Keith made in the previous slide, with an email change of address lookup, which is another thing FreshAddress does a great job of. Keith, if there's any other info you want to add on either of those points.
Yeah, sure. I think with regard to appending, that can be very, very effective, and it's the low-hanging fruit to some extent. If you've got some level of information on your customers, you've got their postal information, you've got first name, last name, but you're looking to reach them via email, that process can help facilitate that. And then I think there's really this predicament that a lot of our customers and marketers get into where, yes, they have a validation solution in place, and that's wonderful, but at the end of the day, they're getting results back and finding out that, okay, 10%, 20% of my list is bouncing or inactive. It's great to clean that out for a number of reasons, but then what do I do with those contacts? How do I reconnect with them via email? And that's where ECOA enters the equation for consumer relationships. So again, two very good things to think about testing out, see how they work in your process with your business, and that's a quick synopsis of how those work.
Awesome. And then lastly, no matter what paid acquisition solution you're looking into, you have to focus on early engagers and optimize quickly. It's the only way to make it work. There's no silver bullet acquisition solution that you can go turn to tomorrow to hit your database goals. It's going to take a lot of work. So whether it's a paid acquisition solution like Facebook lead ads or co-registration, or you set up a sweepstakes or do a co-branded partnership, or it's a paid solution like an append process or the email change of address process, like you said. Yeah, DMi and FreshAddress are always impressed with our clients. No matter what the paid acquisition you're doing is that's getting you a new to file email subscriber, you want to treat those subscribers intelligently and look for the ones that engage early and optimize towards sources that are getting you those early engagers, because they perform differently than organic opt-ins. By their very nature, they didn't come to you and ask for your emails. You kind of went out and did some paid marketing of some kind to try to get their email onto your address. You have to be very in tune with the ones that actually are engaging and want to be receiving your messages most often. Awesome. So diving into kind of moving down the funnel after acquisition, another huge trend we've seen this year is, I don't even say the renewed importance of segmentation and personalization, but the renewed reminder about why they're important and how hard of work it is to make sure that they're working properly when you need them to. So for this, I'm going to hand it over to Brian from DMi.
Thanks, Zach. Yeah, and I think when we look at segmentation for our clients, a lot of what we are making decisions off of in terms of looking at their audience is based off of the first bullet point here, and that is behavioral preference. In all those different ways that you've mentioned in terms of trying to get people to join the file, a lot of them will have a different opportunities to collect information on them. And so that's kind of like that provided preference in terms of someone creating a profile. But what we quickly like to do is build off of that information that's given at that point of opt-in, make some decisions, try and deliver an experience to folks based off of what we can reasonably assume about them, but then quickly be learning, what it is that these individual subscribers are engaging with. Oftentimes we'll find that what someone is actually engaging with might vary pretty considerably from what they've told us they're interested in at the time of opt-in. So kind of making sure that you have all those different mechanisms in place to learn about your different audience, be delivering content to them that matches what they're interested in, but also messaging to them at the right frequency. To your point about about people being early engagers. What you want to really do is quickly learn who those folks are and continue to message them on a frequency that matches their expectations. Whereas people that are not engaging, you want to pull back on and maybe you leverage for a re-engagement stream that is messaging much less frequently, or utilizing those folks in sort of your programmatic buys and stuff like that, retargeting campaigns off of email. So really how we approach this, it's kind of a tiered approach here. Behavioral preference is the best, single most reliable method we'll use for segmentation. For folks where we don't have any sort of engagement preference, we'll use that provided preference that people have added as part of their profile. And then we'll leverage demographics, geo-targeting, and then obviously an area where FreshAddress has a ton of experience with is on that lead scoring and appending basis. Jumping from segmentation into more personalization, as much as possible, what we like to do is be able to deliver a personalized experience on a subscriber basis based off of different triggers, different engagements. So the welcome series is a really probably the most valuable component. You want to make sure that you're customizing that based off of where somebody opted in. Sometimes that experience needs to look a lot different depending on what landing page they came in on. If it was a part of a contest, or if it was through one of the paid acquisition services to get somebody on the file, and really having that be customized based off of how people engage with that welcome series. Re-engagement is another really valuable one. Let's say somebody has stopped engaging with the emails using a specific triggered flow once they've reached that 45 to 90 days or whatever that triggered mechanism is where somebody stops engaging. And then any sort of on-site engagement are really valuable. Some of the more common ones are a browse abandon, cart abandon, post-purchase, but we have clients that are leveraging, somebody printed out something on our site, kicking off a journey for them. If they shared something via social media, that can be a very valuable triggered journey. So really any step or learning that you can take advantage of in terms of an action that someone's taken, developing a customized, personalized experience that will go out to somebody based off of that event. And then jumping ahead, I think we've talked mainly about email so far, but we are seeing more and more of our clients, especially as it relates to their 21 planning, talking about email really as that cornerstone of really driving all of their online marketing channels. So learning personalization in email is probably the simplest to keep learning pieces of information. Does this person have a child in the home? Anything like that, and then using that to make sure that you're updating all of your different marketing campaigns, so that information might feed a different ad that appears via social media, and similarly, if you're learning something this person engaged with their social media, maybe using that as a trigger that should connect back to email. So all this is happening interconnected and need to be thought through in terms of a marketing strategy across all these different touch points.
And that really brings us full circle back to acquisition. How do we get the quality? How do we maintain quality with quality? Or in other words, how do we find engagement at scale? And to the point Brian just made on that previous slide about how emails this touch point for all this cross-channel initiatives, we really see that as being the reason why acquisition has come back to the forefront for so many of our clients in 2021. There's just this immense company-wide push to acquire more first-party data, to own more first-party data of the customers that you want to market to. And the tip of the spear there is email. That's the crucial data point all of our clients are looking for, and they want to be able to email market to them effectively, but they also want to use it as a key to unlock all these other channels as well. So to double back on like our number one best practice tip for any sort of paid email acquisition campaign is to focus on early engagers. The easiest first step here is to establish some sort of early engager KPI. It sounds obvious, but virtually all of our clients that we do acquisition work for on the email side have tried paid email acquisition in the past, and it's failed in some capacity. Either it didn't achieve the volume because the cost was prohibitive, or in the more likely scenario, it achieved the volume, but it didn't achieve the quality. They couldn't maintain open rates, click rates, retention rates, or worst case scenario, they had deliverability issues. And generally speaking, there's a really simple first step filter that they haven't put in place with paid acquisition, which is establish an early engagement KPI, a no nonsense one. It can be very simple, that if the sources that you're paying for email subscribers from aren't hitting, you pause and you stop. The most common KPI is some sort of unique opener rate during the welcome series. Obviously, whether or not someone opens one of your email addresses is not the perfect indication of their LTV over the next 6 years, but it's much, much better than nothing. Nothing is you go out and you pay for an email and you buy 1 million of them and you just wait 6 years. The best, acquisition should be an evergreen channel that's always on, and just, it's like the stone in the river that the optimizations are just slowly molding over time. And starting with that starting with that unique opener rate, basically it allows you to say, okay, we have a source that's on, we're getting a couple hundred subscribers from them. They're at an 8% unique opener rate. We know that our threshold is 22% open rate. That source needs to pause now, and do it when you're in a couple hundred before you get to tens of thousands, because there's no shortage of sourcing out there that can help you get volume. So set strict quality standards. You can always change that KPI over time. The third thing here, be prepared to optimize as soon as day one. That's what I was just referencing. So, a lot of our clients in the past, when they've had failed forays into email acquisition, their story has been that they've bought a ton of leads, they waited a while, and the quality wasn't good, so they assumed the channel didn't work. But any paid email acquisition campaign is like any other marketing campaign you're running. It's a living, breathing campaign that needs to be actively managed day to day. A lot of our clients don't have the bandwidth or the skill set internally, and that's why where DMi is adding the most value from an acquisition standpoint is as an agency that can manage those programs outsourced and leverage our expertise to your acquisition initiatives. But it's absolutely essential. You really can't forget about it for even a few days. You need to constantly be making sure that the subscribers that are coming in are meeting your engagement standards. The fourth one here, this is a big thing we impress upon our clients, especially when they're hungry, their appetite's bigger than their stomach, which is to never acquire more subscribers than you can without affecting your engagement KPI. So you put that engagement KPI in place to protect downstream email engagement and overall deliverability. A lot of our clients, we've had just as many clients who test small, see that it works small, and then say, okay, if this worked at 10 a day, let's buy 1 million tomorrow so that we can actually hit our database goal now that we've tested. That's just as foolish of a step that we've seen really backfire for our clients. So you really need to be working with a partner or have a team internally that can help you assess, okay, this is working. What can we scale to reasonably, and at what rate can we scale our acquisition so that we're not affecting our engagement KPIs, or worst case scenario, our deliverability. So just because something works small, don't assume it's going to work big. Take incremental steps to get big. And really, again, you got to trust the people you're working with to help you figure out if the volume is going to be able to sustain the quality. And the last thing here is always have an idea when you're doing paid acquisition. Have mechanisms in place to put non-engagers into like a re-engagement bucket, or to pull them out of regular sends. Another big landmine we see clients step on when they try paid email acquisition is they get a lot of good subscribers, but they get a few bad subscribers, and they treat them all the same. So if someone comes in through a paid channel and doesn't open an email within the first month, there's no need to be hitting them with your daily sends beyond 30, 60, 90 days, or your weekly sends. To Brian's point before, they're behaving differently. What they told you during opt-in didn't turn out to be true as you were marketing to them, so believe their behavior from your emails. If they're not opening your emails, don't send them emails more often. It's going to pull down your overall open rate. Again, worst case scenario could hurt deliverability. So don't let the bad eggs get in the way of what could be an otherwise successful channel. So most of our clients have a mechanism in place where, like, if a subscriber hasn't opened an email from a paid channel, hasn't opened an email by the end of day 30 or day 60 or day 90, they're pulling them out, they're putting into some sort of reactivation bucket. And it's still consumer data that they own. It fuels other marketing channels. They use it for social targeting and stuff like that. So there's still a ton of value they get from that, but they don't want them to get in the way of them being able to email market effectively.
Thanks. And so, yeah, I think one big part of this, obviously the title of the slide and the recommendation is to have proper validation in place, but I think even to back it up a step, if you're looking to build a really high quality email list that helps propel your business forward, the first step is really just focusing on email address quality. And I know sometimes when people hear that phrase, they think, how much is it going to cost? And there is the possibility that, most high volume senders and most people who are sending emails do need a paid solution in place. But I think it really starts with having a quality standard, defining to your specific organization what is and what isn't a quality email address, and then holding every source, every collection point to that standard, whether it's your website, your call center, your point of sale terminals, lead generation vendors, anywhere. I think that's one place where folks can go wrong. They apply one standard to internal data and another or no standard to external data, or lists that they acquired, or lists that have been passed on from generation to generation. And the reason why focusing on quality is so important, I think first and foremost, is because bad email data costs you money and gets you into trouble. And there's a lot of different ways, you know, how that happens. Some of them are more or less severe than others. Just bouncing email addresses, they're going to mess up your metrics. You're going to waste money with your ESP or your automation provider, who likely charges you on a volume basis. You get into bouncing email addresses and you're not able to honor your commitment or your promise to customers. So someone signs up, they expect a newsletter, they expect receipts, they expect deals and offers, and you're not giving them to them. That's definitely going to be a problem. There's, you know, another level of bad addresses, like spam traps, which if you hit a bad one or hit a number of them, can lead to blocking and blacklisting, where you just can't deploy any emails at all. Never a good thing. Never a good thing during the climate that we're in, and then even worse around the holidays. We see it happen, if not every year, very frequently during the holidays, where someone has a spam trap issue and they're unable to reach their customers via email for some period of time. And as I mentioned before, the reason why all this is a problem is because acquisition sources are flawed. Again, it doesn't really matter if it's through your website, it's in your stores, it's in your call centers. There's a lot of human error that plays a role, and you know, there's fat finger mistakes, there's typos, transpositions. There's just a lot of things that can go wrong in the process of collecting an email address and getting it into your database. It seems really simple, but it's not necessarily. So that ties into the need to have proper validation in place. And also there are, you know, free and low cost things you can do to gauge the quality of your list. We have a free tool called Free List Check. You can just put a segment in, you can put a list of up to, I think, 5 million records in, and it will give you kind of high level findings of, hey, you know, you have this many bounces, this many spam traps, you know, these high value categories that you need to be aware of, that then might drive you to go upstream with a vendor and, you know, iron out some of those problems. And by doing that, businesses see major results. One thing that we see to be supremely effective is cleaning and correcting in real time. That way, none of the toxic bad stuff ever makes its way into your database. We have a bullet here about suggested corrections, excellent in real time. So you're never entering into a situation with a customer where you're not able to honor that commitment. If I put in a bad undeliverable email address, it's going to prompt me in real time, whether it's on the website or in the store, you know, kind of like a did you mean scenario, where then I can re-input my correct email address and, you know, that transaction is made. Like I said, it's going to keep the real bad stuff out of your database. No need to worry about, you know, or less need to worry about spam traps and other stuff that can really wreak havoc on your campaigns. And I think at the end of the day, it's not the only factor, but it's a major factor in optimal inbox placement. So you're going to deliver more of your email campaigns to the inbox, and as a result, you're going to generate more of those opens, clicks, engagement, and revenues that you need to propel your business forward.
Just a real quick to piggyback that, Keith, you know, the point about acquisition there is incredible. I mean, our client acquisition campaigns, we use FreshAddress for validation on new subscribers from the paid vendors we get there. And it's invaluable because, like, even if you're weeding out a very small percentage, to Keith's point, it only takes one or two of the really, really troublesome scenarios to kill an otherwise good lead source. You know, I would say we probably avert on our acquisition campaigns more false negatives than false positives by having having FreshAddress in place, because, you know, we have sources that might be able to yield a 30, 40, 50% open rate or whatever it is, index way above average for our clients. But if their toxic email rate is even a little bit above the index, they're going to get paused. So it helps us avoid, you know, again, like those false positive scenarios where we might pause an otherwise good lead vendor just because we didn't have basic validation in place.
Makes sense. And this is just a real high value look at how our hygiene, validation, correction process works. We talk about it in terms of check, correct, protect. So just making sure first and foremost that the email address is valid and able to accept email. It's a real email address. The corrections, as I talked about, we've got a patent on spell check technology that can correct, what is it, up to 7 errors in a single email address. So a lot of options for fixing those malformed, mistyped email addresses and not missing out on that opportunity. Like I was talking about before, I think now more than ever before, it's imperative that we're able to connect with our customers via email, and you wouldn't want to miss out on that opportunity by capturing an address that may be deliverable, but just that doesn't correspond to your target. I know for me, I shop at multiple brands. I buy a lot of outdoor gear, and if I go, there are 2 retailers that I have in mind that I shop at frequently, and if one can capture my email address correctly and the other can't, I'm going to buy from the one that's selling me Black Friday deals based on things that I've purchased in the past and whatnot. So definitely a really important consideration. And then that third protect step, that's one thing that we feel that we do better than anybody else. We've got a team, I'd like to call them like the CSI team for email. Their sole job is just IDing and flagging new spam traps and spam trap domains. And that's a big step towards not having to worry about those problems.
Awesome. And then, to tie it back in there, that kind of like helps like crystallize what we recommend as like the phases of acquisition for paid acquisition. That is, the first step is to do some sort of just general lead acquisition pilot phase. Set aside a set budget that you're comfortable testing with. It should be limited. It shouldn't be a budget that allows you to hit your database growth goal for the year, but something that's like gives you meaningful scale, a meaningful sample size to trust the results, and acquire some subscribers from some lead vendors. Then quickly, as soon as day one, but certainly within a week or two, start to optimize the email engagement results you're seeing within your database, and tie it back to the lead sources, and use this as like a learning to figure out, does this channel pass the basic proof of concept? Like, can we hit our early engager KPIs? Are people staying on the file? Are they not unsubscribing at a crazy rate? And make sure that there is sourcing within the acquisition pilot you did, that after optimization, it either is at goal or you can see your way to getting to goal. And then you want to gradually move to the scale phase. And again, this is probably the most important step and the one that we see clients fall down on most often, a lot of times just because they kind of give up on the channel because it's failed so many times. But this is where you're starting to figure out, okay, this worked at 100 a day or 5,000 a day during our test scenario, but to get to our growth goal of 10 million new subscribers in 2020, we obviously need to ramp up a lot more than that. So you got to come up with like a very good, deliberate custom growth plan based on how that acquisition and optimization pilot went. For a lot of our clients, it's how do we go from 10,000 during the pilot to maybe like doubling it in month 2 and then tripling it in month 3. In some cases, we'll even go, have day by day send growth trajectories that we're working within from an acquisition standpoint. And the key here is just to never push the envelope too far too soon, because it's just another area where you might blow up an otherwise effective lead solution because you just tried to do too much too soon. And these phases, this philosophy we apply to all of our clients' paid acquisition initiatives. So, we would apply this to a Facebook lead ads campaign, a co-registration initiative, a sweepstakes. On the B2B side, we have clients who leverage like LinkedIn to drive to lead forms, and there's a million different ways that they can fragment the sourcing that's coming into these lead forms. And we would always recommend following these processes. Never skip to step 3. So I'm going to hand it over to Brian again to talk about the number one question that we get from our clients, which is like, I'm hitting the growth goals. How do I continue to sell the value of email? It's a unique challenge for a lot of our clients, and we've got a lot of fun tips to share.
Yeah, and I think to your point earlier, I think early engagement is without fail the most impactful optimization stream or mechanism we utilize. I think for a number of our clients, we've done some analysis, and I think anyone that opens one of their initial emails as part of that welcome series has gone on to have an average open rate of like 37% for one of the clients I'm thinking about over their lifetime on the file. So, I think really utilizing that as a really good early indicator when we're starting with new clients is crucial. It's also for the lifetime of our clients' relationships. It's kind of a tried and true metric that we're always looking at. Whenever we see something happen that causes that to dip, we do see a downstream impact on the lifetime value for that cohort if they are running into issues, whether it's a blip in terms of getting into the inbox in Yahoo or something to that effect. It is something that we need to kind of always be monitoring. So those early engagers really typically focus around the opener rate. A lot of that is designed around the number of opens in the welcome series. And then what we start to do after getting a handle on making optimizations for those early engagers, we start to move downstream a little bit further to determine what are some of the longer term KPIs that we should be tracking now. And so that sometimes that's what is the open rate in general across all sends within the last 30 days? What does that click rate look like? And then some of our clients, we're even getting a little bit further downstream in terms of finding specific benchmarks in terms of, has this person opened 6 of the last 20 sends that they've received and stuff like that we've determined to be really good, reliable indicators. And then getting beyond that, then we start thinking through like, how can we start looking at revenue. Some of our clients are entirely e-commerce. Those are probably the easiest ones to do this, although you're constantly still talking about last touch versus ever received an email types of attribution models, but those are the easy problems to solve. Maybe jumping ahead to the next slide, we have a lot of clients where they either have an e-commerce element in addition to in-store purchases, or they may not even have an e-commerce element of their site. And for those clients, the problem is much more, you got to get a little bit more creative. And so what some of the tools we utilize to figure out what is the ROI impact of our email efforts and of their acquisition efforts. And so some of that will be done by doing outright surveying of subscribers, learning what products have they purchased in the past year, and a bunch of other questions like that. The nice thing about doing that surveying is that almost every answer you get back can be leveraged for some sort of ongoing segmentation and personalization. Most of the time, whenever we're setting up a survey, we also will set up the triggers that are customized based off of responses we receive as part of that survey. Another tool that we utilize for our clients is coupon redemption. Anytime that we can get that feedback back from their online partner, that is, or the solution they're utilizing for coupons, is immensely valuable in terms of putting some sort of dollar estimate towards the impact of our efforts. Another handy piece of information there is, is there any sort of product or warranty registration that we can leverage to put some sort of revenue to attribute to the channel. When we don't have those, or to complement those different streams, what we like to do is leverage any sort of existing indicators that someone might be in that purchase funnel. So building a model, sometimes this can be complemented by utilizing panel data such as IRI, where we might learn that anyone that's visited the site a certain number of times in the past 6 months or to a year has bought such a certain level of dollar amount, and we can build models based off of that. So, okay, we know this person has clicked on at least two messages in the past 6 months, so we know that the incremental lift on the ROI is X for that. We might also learn, somebody that printed on the products might be worth incrementally more money as well. So, a lot of what we're doing with our clients is taking the information that we have available for them and making inferences, that's the word, in terms of what we can expect in terms of how many of those people that printed on an available product could we reasonably assume would then go to buy that recipe, and featuring our client's product and stuff like that. So building a lot of models. The one thing that I would say is none of these, even all the way through to the direct on-site attribution models, are 100% accurate. But what we have found is that by doing these processes and building these models out, we're able to pretty reliably make optimizations along the full funnel, all the way back to the acquisition, through email optimizations to make incremental lifts in our clients' revenue.